What is up, gorgeous souls? This is Breaking the Cage Astrology TV for August, what, 18th through the 24th, and a full moon in Aquarius. But this, we just keep getting rawer and rawer and rawer. Because anytime you have the full moon, I mean, you're having the sun in Leo and the moon in Aquarius. But what it's approaching and the planetary energies that it's next to is, along with Mars and Jupiter, just kind of Mars just past Jupiter. Mercury is in retrograde. It has come back into Leo. There's just so much subconsciousness or unconscious actions and energies floating up into the consciousness, into our consciousness, into our awareness. And we're really seeing ourselves in a different light. We're starting to really explore depths of ourself in some cases that we're not necessarily ready for. In some cases that, we're completely ready to stand in. Both come together. They're both a part of who and what we are. I mean, you can't be all that you are unless you are all that you are. And you are a spark of the consciousness. You are a spark of source. So therefore, you are a spark of everything, which is good and bad. And in a form of the consciousness, there is no good and bad. There's just, interesting. What if on this and what if on that? And we just keep exploring. The consciousness is a never ending, it is a little bit of the rabbit hole. But as we go into this week, we just had the Lion's Gate, and I did miss last week. And I want to say thank you to everyone who was aware that I was dealing with my mom in the emergency room and stuff, and who sent their love and prayers. I appreciate it, and I thank you. And she is home, and we are working with it. We're doing the best we can. And I thank you for all of your blessings and your love. With that being said, coming into this week, we still have a lot of heart chakra energy going on, a lot of heart chakra, throat chakra, and I would say solar plexus and not solar, sorry. Well, it's actually more of sacral chakra and root, along with heart and throat. The solar plexus is in the middle, so it is definitely being affected. But the solar plexus energy is what is being affected by the conversations and the healing energies taking place in the other four. I'm being given a lion this week again. And it just keeps coming forth. And it's more of standing in your inner godding, standing in your oneness of your courage. Don't be moved, but also be willing to withstand the storm and truly see everything for what it is. You've got, like I said, you've got Mercury, which is now moved back into Leo, which is in retrograde. You've got that energy of Mars and Jupiter, which Mars is now past Jupiter. So the aggression and aggressiveness is not quite as intense. But that inner warrior and sacral chakra is still definitely having its conversation with the heart and the throat, because Mercury retrograde, Mercury, which is in retrograde, rules Gemini, where Jupiter and Mars is. Mercury retrograde is taking place now, right next to Vista, the keys to the home and the hearth, in the fifth house, with the sun right before it moves into Virgo. And then we have the full moon directly across. So we are definitely looking at that heart chakra and how it is being affected, opened or closed or blocked, vice versa, with the energies of Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, and Mercury all together. Because it's just the way that they're giving me it, which makes perfect sense, actually. It's a combination of these energies and what it is doing to the heart chakra, our acceptance, our forgiveness, our love. Jupiter bringing in the highest levels of knowledge here and the communication house. But this is also the way that they're giving it to me would be, instead of astrology, it's more of palmology. I don't know what they call palmistry, because this would be Jupiter and this would be Pisces. This would be Saturn. This would be Sagittarius. This would be the Sun, Virgo. And then Mercury and Pisces again. Is it? No, Gemini. So they're giving it to me in those energies of acknowledging. And the funny part is, this is where a lot, it's not where all of them are, but the energies are taking place in a lot of these places. Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Saturn, Jupiter, Sun, Mercury. The only thing that's really off here is the Sagittarius. But when we get into those levels of lower consciousness, of consciencelessness, from the hips down, when we get into the blueprint, we're looking at jealousy and uh, jealousy, fear, and anger, promiscuity, along with our rules, our walls, our boundaries, setting them, maneuvering them, moving them, withholdings, savings, versus our higher consciousness and our universal 12th house of Pisces, where it's speaking to us of just how conscious are you. The 12th house universally is Pisces. It's where illusion fantasy hits you with fantasy hits you with harsh reality, illusion and delusion. It's where we really step into the magic of what is being created from what level of consciousness. The Mercury is our communication, but it's ruled, but it rules Gemini. All of this energy is just like a nice little bundling energy going at us right now. And it is definitely speaking about what it means to communicate and express from what makes you tick. What is important? What are the keys to the life we want? And when I say that, I'm saying it because Leo in the 5th house is the creation house. It's a creator house. It's a fun house. It's your hobbies. It's your hobbies. It's your sports. It's the things you're into. This is where you meet people that are of like-minded energy, that want to be part of the same thing, want to do the same things, are involved in the same things. This is where your bands come together and create bands because they're involved in music, or artists or painters or poets, come together depending on what you're involved in, what makes you tick, what makes you interest, be part of what you get up every day and want to be a part of. It makes you still going, I'm excited to get up every day and to take on the challenge of the new day. And are we experiencing that? Are we experiencing the lightness and the fun and the enjoyment? That's the inner child. Just with great big beady eyes. But you have Mercury here, which is communicating here in retrograde, which is really speaking to us about a lot of that. Well, I'm not quite getting it because of this, or I'm not quite doing it that way because of that. This is kind of in the way. Or beating up on ourselves, we've allowed this to happen, so we didn't give ourselves the love we deserved. The sun is illuminating the truth here. The sun is not positive or negative. It is the executive producer, so to speak, and all signs, all planets take their orders from the sun. In Leo, it's going, I want to enjoy and I want to be part of this. I want to be the king of my kingdom and I want to enjoy that. So what do I have to do to communicate it into reality? But a lot of this is mirroring, because we're looking at the whole bottom of the chart now. The whole bottom of the chart, and it's our private areas. It's where we're identifying with ourselves, with our identities, with our private areas that we don't like to talk about, that we not may not necessarily show to the rest of the world, that's invisible to the rest of the world. So the only way for the consciousness really to have that conversation with itself and help us learn is through mirroring in our social aspects as we come forward. And it's taking us into seeing ourselves inwardly and outwardly for our own mirroring expression of what it is we're expressing. It's like they say a lot of times. A lot of times the mirror takes place because it's something you need to see. Nothing happens outside of you. We all are technically a part of that sleep consciousness. I mean, part of the way that we're all technically, you know, we're here in the matrix playing this game, so to speak, doing this exercise. But our true self is still asleep having this dream. But our communication with ourselves, with who and what we see ourselves as, and how we are expressing it outwardly, what the outer world is showing us, is part of what is going on inside of us. And we're learning how to really take that subconscious or unconscious, bringing it into our consciousness and really get into the depths, rawness of the healing taking place here. This is why I said a lot of throat chakra for expression. But remember, throat chakra is not just you speaking. Mercury retrograde often has a lot of word vomit where we're quick to speak and not always in the nicest of ways. But what we forget is the throat chakra is expression itself through all forms. But one form we forget is it's also hearing. What we hear, are we truly hearing what others are saying to us? Or are we only hearing what we want to hear? The expression is not just words, it's your actions, body language. Sometimes it's your art and what you're part of. I mean, expression has a lot of different ways of communicating with you. And what our heart is trying to express out versus what we're healing in our root chakra and our sacral chakra, which is our safety and our security of what we still believe in the three-dimensional world within our relationships with ourselves and others. This is why it's a big fat mirror. As we move through right before we move into the full moon, you have a yacht on the 18th, which while the moon is in Aquarius, it is specifically speaking to Venus. Anything that the yacht is pointing to, that's the high point. And it is speaking to Venus. Venus is not love. Venus speaks to you about your sensitivities. It speaks to you about your senses. It speaks to you about what's good for you and what's not. It speaks to you about how to charm your way into a situation, but it also speaks about what has, you know, lied to you, destroyed you, emotionally affected you. And betrayed you. So Venus is your sensitivity on all forms, from your physical body and how it is affecting by the stress and so forth in our lives, to our emotional indifferences and the way our mind is working. Well, we are connecting with in those levels. Venus is that energy, and it is in the 6th house of Virgo. The sun doesn't move in here until later in the week. So this is really just with Venus. And it is showing you the highs and lows of what is working for you and what is not in your daily routines, your mundane tasks. The reason everything I say it a million times, the mundane is mundane because you overlook it. You do it so repetitively every day that it has so much more credit in your manifestation and the world you create than you realize. It's what you do repetitively, like feeding yourself, that you don't even realize has that much power. From the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed, the people, places, and things that you are a part of. It is what you feed on for your energy, but it also feeds on you. Venus is speaking to you about where it's good for you, where it's bad for you. And that is speaking directly, like I said, in Aquarius with Cardiclaw. Cardiclaw is the shaman, which is also in retrograde right now. So this is the shaman is in a form a higher level of Aquarius in the first place. It is speaking to us of really being into that higher consciousness, comprehending the higher consciousness, understanding from that higher developed level. And where are we on our growth of our inner shaman, our inner consciousness, our inner workings, our inner path? But it's in retrograde. So this is really going, I'm not really working outwardly. I'm really inwardly working right now of what all of this means. And then it's speaking directly with Chiron, the wounded healer, your identification. Chiron is great at healing others, not so great at healing and identifying the healing it needs for itself, or actually following through with getting the healing it needs for itself. And that's why it's called the wounded healer. And this is your inner shaman, the moon, in that 11th house, speaking to the shaman, speaking to Chiron, the wounded healer, in the first, then going over to the Venus in the 6th. So this is everything that's up close and personal, everything that is manifesting quicker than you have even time to realize, because you do it also repetitively, which you are a part of inside of yourself as well as outside, where you take yourself, your people, places, and things. And then how are you identifying individually with it within this source energy? Because while we are still a part of the oneness, we are all connected to source. We are all also given our individual sparks. So how is it and what is it within your individual spark you are identifying with, good or bad? Because Yod often shows you something in the sensitivity of where you're still holding on to something that's not serving you, something that's keeping it from evolving. Then we move into the full moon in Aquarius, where it is directly across from the sun, Mercury, and Vista. The keys to creating everything you want by understanding where you're communicating to yourself wrong, where you're beating yourself up, where you're not giving yourself the time for what you truly want because you're being distracted by all these other things. It illuminates itself. That's what the sun does when we have the full moon. It's illuminating what has to be seen for us to see and make the changes. Then it moves into Pisces right on top of Nessus, Saturn, and then the next day on top of Neptune. Nessus and Saturn is the curse. It is the ancestral energy that's trying to heal. It is where we're trying to overcome the curse of what we were taught, the lives that we were taught that were wrong, the consciousness that we did not have, where we were still part of the game, and where it's ancestrally kept within our unit, our source, our sparks of what we keep bringing back and what we're trying to heal of it to reclaim our full potential and power. And that is right there with Saturn. This happens literally right after the full moon. So it's literally opening up to go, I'm giving you every bit of depth I got here to show you where you are harming yourself. However, a lot of this is mirroring where you're harming yourself by acknowledging where that exterior world is showing you where you're not loving yourself right. You're not connecting in that higher spark. You're not allowing the healing you need because you're still connecting to things that don't serve you as well. Like I said, it's Nessus. Nessus, right after the full moon, right after that illumination, right after, that really getting into the heart space, that inner communication, showing us where we let it defeat us, where we still believe in the exterior. Saturn comes right after that, within a couple hours. Rules, walls, boundaries, shifting, maneuvering, restrictions. Allowing ourselves to pick this wall up from over here and place it over here. It no longer serves us over here. 12th house, grief, sorrow, shame, blame, insecurity, skeletons in the closet, what we're in denial of, where we still point the finger outwardly. Nothing is outside of us. Although it feels that way a lot of times. Nothing is outside of us. This is all what's going on inside of our own self and the reality we're creating to fit it. And then it moves, that moon moves into Aries at the end of the week, right before we come into the last day, Saturday. But Thursday and Friday, it's going into the North Node. No, yeah, Saturday. Thursday and Friday, the moon will be in Aries with the North Node, with Eris and Chiron. Are we ready to find a new beginning? Because the North Node is everything you need to learn in order to move forward. Identifying with the character you are, identifying with the consciousness that you are part of at this time, the vibration that you are carrying, how you are identifying with the world you are creating. But it's also the wounded healer. So there's pieces here that we're identifying, but we're not connecting to us. We're still, that applies everywhere else, but not really to me. Yes. Yes, it does. And at that time is when the sun is moving into Virgo. Like I said, this whole week has a lot to do with what's the heart and soul fire really telling you you're here for. It's for the experience. We all have a gift. We all have something we're here for, but we have things also we want to experience while we're here. Parts, what makes you tick, what makes you want to get up and breathe life into this day. And then we're moving into, well, what is standing in the way of that? Because the sixth house is your mundane tasks. It is what creates the biggest manifestation. It is the troubleshooting area. It is the energy diet, not just the food diet. And with Regulus now being here in in Virgo, if it doesn't support the heart and soul, it was the heart of the lion, so to speak, Regulus was. Now it's moved into Virgo. So if it's not supporting who we are, what we really want, the bigger picture. Why are we still allowing it to be part of our mundane? What do we have to change? How do we have to stop seeing it from that perspective? There's a lot of depth going on here, some very good gritty depth. Like I said, you have Mars and Jupiter, which are together, just a couple degrees apart. Mars is now ahead of Jupiter, so this isn't as aggressive as it was, but Jupiter is still close enough to bring in a lot of its energy. And this is taking place in Gemini, up close and personal. Relationships of your siblings, of your home. It is what is close to you, this going to the store. It is trivia. It is everything that's up close and personal. What is closest to you? And then we're talking about Mercury being in retrograde, which is actually the ruler of Gemini. And you have Jupiter and Mars here. So really getting into our courage, into our sacral chakra, into our roots, our security, our inner emotional security. And where are we off base within that inner emotional security? Because that has a lot to do with what's going on in the heart and the throat chakra versus the root chakra and the sacral chakra, along with that mirroring and how it is affecting the solar plexus. You have a lot going on right there in Gemini right now. Not to mention that Mars and Jupiter, your inner warrior, your inner SWAT team, your inner belly dancer, your inner confidence, your inner courage, your inner wisdom of the warrior, not just an aggressive young warrior who's out to prove himself, because we are talking about Jupiter being here. Abundantly having the knowledge and the communication to do it right. It is getting along great with that Sun, that Mercury, and that Vista. The keys of understanding what and how we have to shift things. It is getting along great with the North Node and with Chiron, of learning who we are, addressing the healing that we have to take place, addressing the character we're choosing to play in the manifestation and the reality that we are creating for ourselves, identifying with ourselves in our own communication inwardly of our inner emotional security. But what it's not getting along with is Saturn and Venus. No, it is not getting along with being comfortable with making the changes and acknowledging where we're in denial of it. Saturn is in that 12th house of Pisces. Illusion, delusion, grief, sorrow, shame, blame, insecurities in general, and what we have not healed. Venus is showing you how sensitive you are to the truths of it and your daily routines and what still take place. Your Mars and your Jupiter, your inner warrior, your inner SWAT team. This is where I'm getting the lion standing firm. You have to stand firm here and withstand the storm in order to know who yourself is, to come into that higher level of consciousness, awareness of healing. You have Chiron, which is getting along great with that Sun, Mercury, and Venus. So identifying with yourself is one thing. Identifying with becoming into the consciousness of what was unconscious is easy enough there. It is easy enough there for us to bring that into acceptance if we're willing to do that work. It is easy enough for us to show ourselves that we can love ourselves, we can make these things, we can see these changes. But what Venus is not getting along, your sensitivity, is not getting along with Saturn or Nessus. making the changes. Meaning it's easy enough for you to know who you are, but to actually stand firm in the lion and not buckle, not back down, stand firm. That's not quite as easy. That sixth house of your routines, your mundane tasks, your daily energy diet, people, places, and things, what you're a part of, versus realizing where we're still allowing ourselves to be a part of what doesn't serve us well. Nessus is the curse, where we're still stuck in our way of thinking that it's acceptable, but we have to change that thinking. It is having very unpredictable energy with Chiron, meaning it can come into the power of oneself, but it can also buckle back down and go, "Oh, well, I still believe in that, so maybe not today." That's not really what we want. You have incredibly unpredictable energies this week as well with Pluto, and it is getting along pretty well with Uranus, Venus, and Lilith. It's almost a grand trine, but not. A little bit off. But that Pluto is getting along great with Uranus, coming into that individuality, uniqueness, freedom, self-worth, self-value, self-esteem. But this is all, are you really in your power, or are you feeling like you have to protect your power? When we roar like the lion, we're in fear that it's being taken away. That's part of that second house of movable property. And when you become the property, that's a different situation. So this is, are we truly in our power? Like I said a million times, harnessing your chaos, controlling your chaos to harness your power, understanding yourself on all aspects, slowing down and truly being in control. This this is one of the biggest things about this. Pluto is teaching us to let go, let the dead to the dead, let the consciousness to the consciousness. None of this is real. We're all shifting and changing anyway. You are more than you could ever dream that you are. So stop putting yourself down and come into that higher understanding. Coming back to that Uranus, going, well, claim it. Independence, liberation. Claim it, feel it, know it, manifest on it. And it is speaking to Venus if you can believe in it. Very unpredictable here. It all depends on how emotionally inclined you will take that, as to where you will take that. It is also having that very unpredictable energy with Lilith. And again, that's your daily routines, your daily energy diet. Are you in your power or not? Or are you going with the flow of what always has been? Pluto, though, is getting along great with Mars. Not necessarily Jupiter, with Mars and that communication. So all of this is about coming into the higher consciousness, knowing yourself at a higher level, believing in it. Inner emotional security cannot be taken from you if you reclaim it, if you get to know it. But all of this takes time. You're not going to get to know everything about yourself in one good fail swift. This is something that we continuously grow in and become better at. But this week is definitely a challenge on just how far into it. How much do you know yourself? Are you? I love you guys. Bye.